Istongo Seminole. Jeremy FULTZ, Chehojifkados, and Mojanita Hadamnita Heedles and Popahoyan, Moan, Delaney PENNOCK, Legos. We should probably do that for people that don't know the language, huh? How are you today?
That sounds a little different.
I know. My name is Jeremy FULTZ, and alongside next to me, sitting here, Mr. Delaney PENNOCK. This is the last show of the year.
Yeah.
And we made it all year.
We made it. Another one.
Wow, it's cold outside. It was cold this morning. I was getting gas. It was like 21 degrees.
Yeah. I remember seeing it was like 16 when I left the house early this morning.
Oh, man. So, not a lot going on this week, Delaney. So,
wrapping up the new year.
Yeah, wrapping up.
Get ready for the new one. So
the nation ended up closing the offices a little early because of the weather. On Thursday and Friday, weather got real bad, and so I know I got iced in up in the city.
Yeah, I didn't want to risk it. It was looking. I looked outside and it was windy.
You opened your eye.
I heard it. I heard the wind. So
you heard the wind. Nah, somehow I don't believe that one.
I'm always ready to come into work, so.
Yeah. Me too. So, looking forward to next week, just right off the bat. The tribal offices will close on Monday for the new year. That's going to be January 2nd, I believe. Is that right? Yep. I've been using 2023 already on my calendar, because the tribe or the nation, we go to 2023 starting in October. And so now my calendar is actually catching up with how we write, all our business stuff. So
I'm not going to get used to that. 2023 already?
2023, we're getting old.
Yeah.
So looks like Jake's sitting right next to you already. He's ready to go, isn't he?
I think so. I'll take my spot if you want.
Man, so let's kind of do what we normally do every week about this time. We do want to keep everyone in prayer for the families that have lost people, even our own coworkers experienced some loss this week. And so we want to keep them in y'all's prayers. We also want to remember, some of the families that went through their first holidays, big holidays, without some of their family members there. That's a tough time, especially for some young ones. And I know even on my in-law side of the family, they lost one of their kinfolk this weekend. So keep them in y'all's prayers. And then we're going to go ahead and kind of go out of order and get do the moment of silence right around this time. Any words you want to say, Delaney?
I don't have any at this time.
All right. So at this time, we are going to go ahead and pause for a moment of silence. Mado. Communities, our community is kind of tight-knit, and every community is going to have its quarrels, and every community is going to have, it's like a family, right? Sometimes you get mad at someone for doing something, but, our community, for the most part, we're a pretty tight community, and even, we always try to look out for the elders the best we can, and so going into the new year, especially with it being cold, and for some of us that attend ceremonial grounds, this is what we call the winter time, and some of the things that we do. We try to check in on people, and I encourage everyone to do that around this time, especially your elders. Make sure they have wood and heat, maybe a meal, and just double check on them. Make sure they're doing okay, because you never know, especially when it's this cold out there. One little water leak can cause a big issue, big problems. And so, Delaney, you had to experience that last year, didn't you? Didn't your water leak in the cold, and
Yeah.
and even for a young guy, I'm sure that's not an easy thing to do. And so, like I said, just keep an extra eye out, check on your elders, your neighbors, do what community does, and come together and just make sure everyone's doing okay. And if they need something, do the best we can to help meet those needs. And so, this weekend, with it being New Year's, so Sunday was Christmas Day. And our family church, they had church on Sunday, on Christmas Day. Remember, because we was talking about, church. Well, they had church. Okay. And so this Sunday will be January 1st, New Year's Day. And so the churches that are scheduled to have their 4th and 8th Sunday church meetings will be at Tsno, Alabama Corsati, Belvin Baptist, Cedar Springs, Cold Springs, Hutchajubba, Little Coweta, Little Corsati, Many Springs, Okmulgee Baptist, Prairie Springs, Spring, Weogolfki, West Eufaula, Wewokoji, and Yardika. And so that'll be this weekend for those churches. And usually, like we encourage every week, if you plan on visiting one of them churches, you might just call ahead and see if they are going to be having those church meetings this weekend. But other than that, Delaney, that's everything that we normally talk about right at the top of the hour. What else we got going on?
Geese lock.
So we do have a guest in the office today, Mr. Jake Tiger. Jake, why don't you go ahead and squeeze on in? Delaney's going to stay here with us today.
Howdy, everyone.
Jake, you was just here last week, wasn't you?
Just here.
So last week we talked about the Battle of Okeechobee. Why are you here so early?
There's quite a lot of stuff happens in December for the Seminoles. So should we just dive straight into it?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So on today we're going to talk about the Days of Battle, which happened on December 28th, 1835. It was actually the beginning of the Second Seminole War. It was actually a really big battle that happened. So there was 110 U.S. troops of the 2nd Artillery, 3rd Artillery, and the 4th Infantry regiments that were ambushed by the Seminole Tuskegee, led by Micanubby. The Seminole had been planning this battle for like nearly a year, so it wasn't just a random occurrence. They had been planning it. Alligator and Jumper were the ones who were kind of scouting out the area, kind of watching their patterns, and which trails did they take, and how many people they had, how much they brought back on a journey. So they had the troops were marching from Fort Brooke, which was in Tampa, all the way down to Fort King in Ocala. Well, they were ambushed by the Seminoles that were the battlefield was somewhere near in the county of Bushnell, Florida. And leading the troops was Major Francis Dade, and he was actually assassinated. He was the first person to get shot during the battle, and that was actually a tactic that was used by the Seminoles to take out the person in charge, which kind of left all the troops in disarray. And then once that happened, then the Seminoles had the upper hand, and they just kind of went at it, and they completely just decimated all the troops on the battlefield. There was actually 3 people that were actually able to escape. 2 of them were actually hunted down, and then 1 was actually able to survive and tell the story of it and put it in the military records of that battle. And so, but there's actually another really big thing that happened that day is at Fort King, because some people will say, well, was Osceola at that battle? No, he was not. He was actually at Fort King that same day when he assassinated Wally Thompson. Wiley Thompson was the Indian agent, who was his outpost was at Fort King, and he had a lot of wrongdoings with the Seminoles, so he had a lot of tensions between him and Osceola, and so. And Osceola was actually pretty regular at Fort King. He actually got arrested one time at Fort King by Wiley Thompson for kind of getting out of hand during an argument, and so it was kind of it was kind of build up. They had a lot of tension between those guys, and so some will say Osceola actually did assassinate Wiley Thompson with the same rifle Thompson gave to him that same day. And we went to that site back in April. And they showed us all the people over at Fort King, showed us the area. And what they told us, I didn't know about this, was they said Thompson was shot 14 times, and there was a guy with him that got shot one time. So it was pretty personal when they went after him. But those are two really big things that happened on December 28th, 1835, which was Thompson's assassination over at Fort King, and then the battle or Dade's battle.
And you had mentioned Fort Brooke. That's downtown Tampa right now, isn't it?
Yep.
Right on the that bay area. I remember going down there a couple of years ago and had the opportunity to go down with HPO at the time, and it was a good trip. And a lot of people, it just looks like a business down there, but there's certain markers that you can see. And then even looking at the old maps on where some of the older, like, burial mounds were, and man, it's just interesting, all the history that's down there in the state of Florida, and especially in Tampa.
Absolutely. And that's why that's why it's called in Dade County, is because of Major Dade from that battle, which was kind of resides the area of Bushnell and Miami, so that they kind of put that place in honor of Major Dade, even though he didn't really do much. He just got assassinated on his horse by the Seminoles. But yeah, just all that kind of stuff. It's really big to dig deep into that. I know they have a reenactment down there in Florida. I think they do it maybe 2 weeks after the holidays, so people can kind of rest for a second. But those are two really big battles during that time period. Like I said, last week Christmas Day was Okeechobee, and then tomorrow, which would have been the anniversary of Dade's battle.
Wow, some good information. So last week we kind of did this too. We kind of stepped back and we looked at our history kind of from that bird's eye view, you might say. Let's kind of do that again, because now you kind of set it up. Last week we talked about the Battle of Okeechobee. Now we're talking about the Dade's battle. Kind of where are we at in that history marker and how we got here?
Well, like I had mentioned before, the Dade's battle, they say the first, second, third Seminole War, but to the Seminoles, we just see it as the Seminole Wars because it was everlasting hostilities towards the Seminoles. And so, a lot of historians kind of break it up, but this was kind of the beginning of the Second Seminole War, which was Dade's battle. There was battles before that, but then there was treaty negotiations of Moultrie Creek, Payne's Landing, Treaty of Fort Gibson, and all that stuff kind of transferred over to all these different hostilities, encroachments on tribal lands. The Indian policy at the time, which was move everyone west of the Mississippi. And so there was a lot of stuff that built up to it. It wasn't just we didn't like them being here. There was a lot of policy. There was, the land was perfect for farming. So they wanted the Seminoles out of there because they can grow cotton, they can grow tobacco, they can grow sugarcane. Even, just something to kind of add into it, when Osceola was captured under a flag of truce by the order of Jessup, General Jessup. Actually, he wasn't the one who captured Osceola. It was Jose Hernandez, who was the general. But Hernandez had his own motives to capture Osceola because he had interest in having a sugarcane plantation. So that was all that kind of stuff, a lot of the greed, which wanted to move all the natives out west. That was a policy during the 1800s, was we have more immigrants coming to the area, and they want to develop, but they can't do that because we have our own traditional homelands. We were here first, and to us, we don't own the land. We just use it, and then we preserve it for the next generations and for other living inhabitants, but we don't own none of it. And so, that was a conflict of interest for both cultures.
So, kind of looking forward, Dade's battle. What kind of comes next?
Well, after Dade's battle, there was a lot of battles that were kind of separated out into that, but that was 1835, and when I said the Battle of Okeechobee, which was 1837, but there's a lot of big battles that happened. The Battle of Wahoo Swamp, the Loxahatchee battle. There was trying to think. I'm trying to look at that old map. I have a little map of all the battles that were there, but there's so many that happened during the Seminole Wars, and so it's actually the longest lasting war still to this day in the United States, which was a 29-year-long war with just a small tribe down in Florida, or I shouldn't say tribe, but a nation of small tribes that kind of came together that were labeled as Seminoles. But yeah, it was one of the longest and costliest war the United States has ever endured. A lot of people will say the Afghanistan War is actually, but it's actually the Seminole Wars if we look in, to the logistics of it.
And so, would you say the Battle of Okeechobee that was kind of like the start of the third Seminole War? Is that about that time?
Not necessarily, because the Okeechobee would be labeled as the second Seminole War.
Second,
yeah. We didn't really start to see the third Seminole War come about until the 1850s, when Hobotomiko Billy Bullock started, really started to take control of Florida, of all the Seminoles that were still there in the area. Because at the time, we had Seminoles that were starting to be shipped off Egmont Key, that were coming in on decommissioned slave ships up into New Orleans, down to Fort Smith, and finally here to Fort Gibson. And so, there was a lot of policy that went about. And so, and one of the things that they did, which would have been like a war crime nowadays, is they used women and children and the elders as ransom to get the warriors to surrender. Otherwise, they would just do away with them. And so that was one of the tactics that the troops had to defeat the Seminoles. Seminoles technically never really lost a battle. It was just a matter of ethics that were unjust by the United States, and also that ran out of supplies. But on the battlefield, we were unmatched.
And you think about it. Decades. The Seminoles fought for decades. You hear of a war, 2 years, but Seminoles, from when they first started battling the U.S. till removal, about how long would have been in total?
How long the battle would have lasted?
Just the whole, we look back at history.
The whole scope of it. Yeah, because even when we came to Oklahoma, when we came to Indian Territory, we had to deal with the Civil War. We were caught on both sides of it. Even prior to the Seminole Wars, a lot of the Muskogee Creeks that came down into Florida during the Rustic Wars, which became the Seminoles, there was also hostilities back then during 1814. And so, I would say a big majority of the 1800s was just hostilities towards the Seminoles.
And you can only imagine, some of these who we would identify as warriors, people that fought for the Seminole people that are part of that nation, and some of these tribes that made up Seminole Nation. They were born into war, and they died during war. So their whole life, all they've seen is their loved ones, passing away, getting killed. You talk about even towards we call it the end, but it wasn't even really the end. During removal, when they were just tired. All these years, they fought and fought and fought, and now they get forcibly removed to Indian Territory. And like you mentioned, some of their children and their wives were captured and used as ransom. At some point, they're just tired.
Yep. Absolutely.
Because they've seen it all their life, fighting for what they believed in, and then at the end to get, have genocidal tactics used against them, to get forced to Indian Territory, and seeing, and that's part of, when we go down and we go to these historic sites. Yeah, it's cool to see, But man, you start thinking about just the emotion, and you think about the significance of if something else would have happened, or just the lives that were lost in that place. And there's even cultural things that we do today based off of what was done during like the trail. You go to a native funeral, and you see blankets and quilts put on the casket. That was part of what had happened during that trail, what we call that Istimishkidananini. And so, all that just kind of leads into who we are now. So we appreciate your work that you do, Jake. Good information, and even I like to consider myself someone who knows the history, but just the depth of it, even the dates and stuff, I don't even really know the dates that well, but just the overall history, it's good for our people to know. And, a lot of our Seminole people, they're Creek and Seminoles and Creeks. And you have some that are just Creek and some that are just Seminole. But our histories brought us together, and our histories are part of some of the same people, some of the same people groups. Our language, part of that Muskogean language family. Absolutely. And so it's there's so much there just to learn and to see. So we appreciate everything that you do, Jake. Anything else you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, just kind of add on to what you were saying was one thing I really try to emphasize a lot is when we said Creek and Seminole, I kind of lumped them both together because they both come from the same cultural connection. Even with the Choctaws and Chickasaws, at one point in time, way back, even before people were dating the history, we kind of came from the same exact people. We had the same languages. We had the same ceremonies. But over time we started to take our own identities, and that's one of the things that as Southeastern people we have to look at is they're not just this tribe. We're not our own tribe. We're actually we come from the same people. We should always work together, and because we've always been the same. We've always been the same exact people. We just different languages, different songs that we have, and the thing about history, learning about it is not just learn it from a textbook, learn it from thinking from different angles, and that kind of helps you understand where someone else's standpoint might be, or how things function around here. And so it kind of helps you understand yourself better. But a lot of people say history repeats itself, and one of the things that I notice is once we learn our history and we start to become more aware of things, that kind of helps us kind of reconnect and get back to our old ways, and not us to be relying on convenience. We should always find a way to speak our own languages. We should practice food sovereignty, all kinds of stuff. There's so much. One of my old friends from the Cherokee Nation, when we always talk about living history, he always says we're the same exact people we were 20 years ago. The only difference is we have electricity now.
Well, Jake, that's some good stuff. Stay with us, for the rest of the show. Mark, do you want to join us in? Dang, you guys can stay too, though. Everyone's leaving. But with it being the last show of the year, I just want to, give everyone an opportunity to come on this morning. And like we mentioned, it's kind of a slow news day in the Seminole Nation. Just kind of right offhand, Diabetes are still doing, or they're started up their Brown Bag Fitness this week because, today they're over at the Senior Citizens Building working out with Jerome, and that's Monday through Thursday. They do Brown Bag Fitness that starts at around 10 after 12 and goes to about 12:45. That's Monday and Wednesdays at Jafigny, and Tuesday and Thursdays over at the Senior Citizens Building. Tai Chi on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. over at New Life Church in Wewoka. Then there's chair aerobics Mondays and Wednesdays at the Bridge at 10 a.m. The 30th, we do want to remind everyone of the blood drive located at the North Community Building. there on the Miccosukee campus, Miccosukee Mission campus. That's going to be from 10:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. But outside of that, Mark, you have any communication news you'd like to share?
Hope this isn't too loud. So we have the newspaper is out, the December issue. We are currently working on the January issue. That one's going to be a big one. We're going to do like an end of the year, like a recap of what happened in 2022. So kind of highlights of what happened around here and just the news around here. So that should be coming out in the first couple of weeks in January. We have a video shoot with executive tomorrow with chief and assistant chief, and they'll be kind of doing some well wishes and New Year's Day greetings and maybe a recap as well. So that's what we have coming up this week.
Good deal. Also coming up towards the end of the week is going to be the annual Princess Youth Basketball Tournament held at the at the bridge here in Seminole. And if you have any questions, you can contact Bernita Whitekiller at 580-665-8002 or Wendell Williams at 405-584-1726. So on December 29th, it's going to be the 3rd and 4th grade girls and boys. On the 30th, it's going to be the 5th and 6th grade girls and boys. And then on Saturday, December 31st, is going to be the 7th and 8th grade girls and boys.
And we'll be taking some photos as far as communication goes. We may go live with it. Kind of depends on how the turnout is. So be looking for that on our social media platforms.
All right. And then also keep in mind that there are holiday hours at the Seminole Nation Retail. New Year's Eve, they'll be open from 5:30 a.m. and they'll be closing at 11 p.m. on New Year's Eve. On New Year's Day, they won't open till 7, but then they'll close at 10. And then after that, they'll go back to regular hours. But anything else that you guys got?
No, that's pretty much it. We have, like you mentioned earlier, it's kind of a slow week. Our last show of the year. Yeah. I think it was a good one.
Delaney, you got birthdays this week, or did people stop having birthdays? Oh, Jake's got the birthdays. Okay.
I'll do the birthdays.
Just multitasking over here today.
So we got Melina Whitekiller, Sonia Larney, Dara Hudson, Miko McGirt, Alex Raby, Jerry Haney, Jason Fairchilds, Chelsea Deer, Christina Chalapa
for CHR,
and Dustin Harjo. Happy birthday, Deal.
Happy birthday. And Jake, any final thoughts? You know, this is the end of the year. Usually people have like, what do they call them? New Year resolution. Yeah.
Just hope everyone had a good year, and bringing a new year a good way. Do good to yourself, do good to others. Always be kind to animals. Think about the earth. All that good stuff. So, just good things to keep in mind.
Good one, Agenda Mark.
Very good one. Everything Jake said, that was really, really good. Happy New Year.
Jake stole my answer.
Yeah. He was looking at my notes here. So, but yeah, Happy New Year's to everybody, and everybody be safe.
Yeah, Agenda Delaney. Not good. It's a. He said Jake stole his answer too. I guess for me, we try to do the best we can on the radio show, and one of the things I was thinking about today, because Mark's been talking about a video that we've been doing. We think about the goal of the radio show is to just disseminate information, to give information to people that might not be able to get it necessarily on the Facebook page. They might, a month between the paper might be too long. And so, we try to hit all the news that we can during these 30 minutes. And sometimes it's not long enough. And then we do have to put stuff on the radio show or on the Facebook page. But, we just appreciate everyone that comes up to us and they appreciate what we do. Man, that makes me feel good when elders come up and say, man, we appreciate what you did or what you guys do on the radio. And it feels good that we can help out that way. And so we'll continue to try to do what we can. And like Jake stole my answer too. So everything that Jake said, we go into the new year and trying to do a little bit better better for ourselves, better for the people, and better for the community. And just hope everyone goes in with some good health and try to lose some weight and eat a little bit better. But I'm going to go eat some Chinese maybe for lunch. Anything else? All right, you can catch the rebroadcast of this radio show on the Facebook page, YouTube, and tribal website, sno-nsn.gov for the Seminole Nation of Oklahoma every Wednesday. If you have news or announcements you would like to share on the Community and Events Facebook page, please email the communications staff at seminolemedia@gmail.com or call 405-652-7251. And then I do have one announcement for the MMIP Central Oklahoma Benefit Gourd Dance that's going to be in January 14th. So we've got another week to talk about that. But as always, man, I about got choked up. Tune in every Tuesday around 11 a.m. right here on KWSH 97.7 FM or the legendary 1260 a.m. for radio producer
Mark Williams,
for HPO
Jake Tiger,
for language Delaney PENNOCK. I'm Jeremy FULTZ. We appreciate it. We hope everyone has a good new year. Otholabi Mujazi. Mado.